Welcome to the Deal Doctor live stream. It's Monday, 1 o'clock. And today I want to talk to you about getting out there and getting some listings. Now, it's February. It's time to be out there hustling. But first, let's talk about that effective date, shall we? Apparently, there's still a lot of confusion about what is the effective date of a contract. And why the reason that it's important to understand what the effective date of the contract is that determines when the clock starts ticking regarding all aspects of the contract, whether that's the inspection contingency, the title work, delivery, ordering and delivery period, well and septic ordering period. All of those things start as a result of the effective date, not on the effective date, but the next full day after. Now, let's pretend, for example, that we have an offer. We're a buyer's agent. We've submitted an offer. The seller accepted that offer yesterday, the 2nd. Now, theoretically, the February 2nd would be the effective date of the contract, theoretically. However, that agent was too busy. He didn't get it until 9 or 10 o'clock at night on Saturday night, the 2nd. Let's say that happened. Sunday night, the 2nd. I was watching the Super Bowl. Okay, so the agent sends it over to you today. He or she delivers that offer to you today with an acceptance as written. Today is the effective date. The delivery by the other agent, by an agent to you or you to that other agent, the actual delivery is what determines the effective date, not just the date on which the meeting of the minds occurred. That delivery is usually occurs on the same date as the signatures, but not always. So the delivery date determines what the effective date is, and then the 10-day inspection window would start the very first full day after that, which would, in this case, be tomorrow. So, in the case that I've just described, the effective date isn't the day they sign it, but rather the day it's delivered. More often, however, the confusion lies in whether or not the effective date is the date at which the buyer or seller acknowledges the acceptance of the other party. That acknowledgement signature is not required for an enforceable contract. It's simply not required. Now, the mortgage company may ask for it, the other agent may ask for it, and it's not worth squabbling over. It's not worth the time and energy, so I usually go ahead and get it. But it's not required to make an enforceable contract. Only the meeting of the minds signatures are required and the delivery to the other party. So I hope that clarifies it. If not, please make a note in the comment section, and we'll see if we can clear it up for you. All right, it's February 3rd, and sunny out, great day. Yesterday was a great day. And it's time to go out and get listings. If you haven't already started this year, this is going to be a different year than last year was. And last year was a different year than the year before. Even though we were in strong sellers markets, we're going to, I think, experience a strong sellers market this year too. It may be different than it was last year, but as I firmly believe, listings are the name of the game. It's much easier, much more efficient to handle 10 listings than it is to handle 10 buyers and try to get 10 buyers out looking at houses and buying something as compared to having 10 listings. So listings are the name of the game. The objections you're going to get now, this time of year, is number one, I don't want to wait till, I want to wait till spring. I don't want to list right now. I want to wait till spring. And I want to share a few things with you about that might help you in a minute. Another one is I don't want to move in the winter. Now, the fact that we have very little snow on the ground here in Grand Rapids and other places in West Michigan doesn't really matter. We're still in winter. We're still going to see more snow. But when you start to consider that typically it's going to take 30 days to 45 days to get a deal closed, there may be some possession time after that, we're well past worrying about having to move in the wintertime. Some objections you'll hear maybe about the seasonality. My home has a pool, or I have a beautiful flower garden. I want the flowers to be in bloom. I want to have the pool open so that people can see how wonderful my home is. Okay, I understand their reasoning. The problem is that by the time they list it and they close it, it's very often too late for them to enjoy the pool fully or the flowers for the season starting in May. So an objection might be, or their objection might be handled in a way like, I get it, I understand. Most people who are buying things like lake homes and pool homes and nice flower gardens, they want to buy them and close on them prior to the season so they can enjoy the pool or the lakefront or the flower garden all year long. More on that in a moment. But when you're prospecting for a listing, the first place that I always go is to my sphere of influence. Family, friends, past clients, people I do business with. And I start talking with them about who do you know who might be thinking about making a move this year. It's an open-ended question, as opposed to, do you know anybody who is going to sell their house this year? I keep it open-ended because it makes people think. Who do you know who might be thinking about selling their home this year? Ask everybody you know that question. And if you do that, do 10 of them a day, 20 of them a day if you can. And if you ask every person you know that question, you will get listings. Guarantee it. You will get listings. The other place that agents often go is for sale by owners. And this is going to be a great year for us to be prospecting for sale by owners. I believe that the for sale by owner market is going to be more vulnerable this year than they ever have before in the last 4 or 5 years anyway. It's not going to be as easy for sale by owner to sell in 2020. So it's a great time for agents to go out and talk to for sale by owners. I can tell you this, if you're going to go after for sale by owners, do it consistently. Be consistent in your marketing and your contact with them. Send them something every single week and call them every 2 weeks at minimum. Very often you'll hear the argument from a for sale by owner, well, thanks, but we're going to try it on our own, see how it goes. Maybe we'll list down the road. Maybe we'll list it for sale on the MLS sometime. And I always ask them, I can appreciate how you feel. May I ask you, how long do you think you'll try before you consider listing with a real estate agent? And their answer to me is maybe a month, maybe 2. But you know what? My brother-in-law is a real estate agent, and we're going to list with him. Okay, I get that. Would it be okay if I sent some information to you, or would it just be a waste of time? I'm very honest with them. And if they say it's a waste of time, I'm done. I move on. If they say, no, yeah, that's fine, send us some information. I put my information in the mail that includes my marketing plan, what I do on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the listing contract, and I send them a piece every week for 10 weeks, or until they sell, or until they say, don't ever call me again. So it's working FSBOs is all about consistency and perseverance. The only thing that's going to change a FSBO's mind is time. Time on the market and their level of frustration when they don't sell or they don't get as much money as they think they should. So another one is expired listings. I think we're going to see more expired listings this year than we ever have before. Again, in the last recent history of 4 or 5 years. Expireds are, again, a different breed altogether. And I have a process for working expireds where I ask them, do you still want to sell? When you put your home on the market, do you have any idea why it didn't sell? How did you arrive at your price? What would it do to you if you could not sell? And would you even think about having me come over and share a cup of coffee and conversation with you about how we can get your home sold? Talk to people. Don't sell them. Don't be salesy. It doesn't work in this environment anymore. I have what I call a structure for my conversations. And one of the structures that I use is what I call my overcoming objections, handling techniques, objection handling techniques, excuse me. And what that means is that I go through a process. It's not a canned speech. It's not, what's the word I'm looking for, Dom? It's not a spiel. It's not a script. It depends on the conversation that I'm having with a client or a potential client, how I'm going to phrase something. For example, I try to cushion it. I try to, first of all, if they say to me, I don't want to pay a commission, I cushion it. I agree with them. I understand. It's a lot of money. Yeah, I get that. And then I clarify. Step 2, I clarify. So if I'm understanding you correctly, your biggest concern about listing your home with a realtor is the amount of money that you would be paying out. Am I understanding you correctly? And if they nod their head and say, yeah, that's my concern, are there any other concerns that you'd have with listing your house with a realtor? And they might share something, but let's just stay on that one for a moment. So, I understand how you can feel that you might be paying more for to list your house with a realtor, but if I shared some information with you that might prove otherwise, would you even think about hearing what I have to say? Yes or no? And if they go, well, yeah, I guess I'd listen, and that's the consideration. Would you consider hearing me out if I might have information that could be helpful to you? Now, some people are going to say, no, I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear anything you have to say. Okay. And then it's a good time to leave. Say thank you very much. I've enjoyed the opportunity to talk with you or meet with you. If they say, yeah, I'll listen to what you have to say, then you have your case. Then you get to make your case for what's different. For example, in the case of the for sale by owner, as I mentioned, it might be the highest price that you'll get is when your house has the greatest competition. In other words, if you got 100 buyers looking at your house, would you agree that you probably would get better offers than if you only had one house or one buyer looking at your house? Would you agree with that statement? most reasonable people would say, yeah, I would agree with that. If I share with you that 9 out of 10 buyers out there are looking for a home with a real estate agent, and only one buyer out there is looking all by themselves at for sale by owner homes in order to save money. Bear in mind, they're the ones who want to save the money. They don't want to save you the money, they want to save the money. Does that make sense? I suppose so. So on one hand, we have buyers who are working with real estate agents that make up the majority of the market by far, and one buyer who wants to lowball you. Are you with me so far? Yeah, okay. So if I can provide you greater exposure to get to those buyers than any other real estate agent, don't you think that the offer you'll get could very well make up for the offer that you're going to get from that one buyer who wants to save money? Yes or no? And if they say yes, or if they hint that it might be a yes, then you can close and say, how about we give it a try? How about we get the ball rolling? You're going to get listings if you are consistent and you make appointments and you go through a process or a structure of conversation so that you control the conversation. I want to go through very quickly. I don't want to spend a lot of time. Again, I'm going to go through. Every board is different, so I want to make sure that you check with your own board and you check with your own stats or your own forms up there in wherever you are, whether you're in Cadillac, the mom board, GCAR, and so on. But if I'm going to go on a listing appointment, I'm going to need the West Michigan Regional Purchase Agreement. That's one document I'm going to need. And I'm going to fill everything out on that listing form before I go out on the listing appointment, except the price. That's the only thing I'm not going to have filled in. And that is something that I'm going to talk with them about at the point of the listing, at the listing meeting. Listing contract. Disclosure regarding agency relationships. Who are you going to be working for? Well, I always fill in seller's agent. I always work for the seller. I never work as a dual agent, ever. Seller's disclosure form. Easy peasy. They get to fill it out. Don't touch it. Lead-based paint. Disclosure. The lead-based disclosure PDF. By law, you're supposed to give this to every seller. I know that a lot of agents don't, but by law, you're supposed to. I always give them a reminder about wire fraud. It's an important reminder. If they're going to use Star Title, and I hope they do, get an affiliated business arrangement disclosure signed that says that they understand that Star Title is owned by Five Star Real Estate. I always take a listing amendment with me because let's say the discussion goes down the road of, I want to list the house today, but if it doesn't sell, if I don't have any offers in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, I want to reduce the price. Guess what? I'm going to get that filled out and signed right now, for a month from now, that we're going to reduce the price. Because if in 3.5 weeks they change their minds, I have a signed document that says, oh, remember we did sign that one. Did you want me to put that through or not? And if they say no, I won't. I follow their instructions. I don't strong arm them. But it kind of reminds them of the meeting that we had and what we discussed about marketing and what to do. There's also the delay of submission of the listing to the MLS. That one's if they don't want to put it on the MLS right away. If they want to list it now, you can secure the listing even though it may not go on the market until the 1st of March or the 1st of April. You can use a delayed submission form and hold that listing until it's ready to go live. Finally, and I urge you all, finally, there is the seller's net sheet. I always fill out a seller's net sheet before I go on a listing appointment. Now, I may choose a number. If I'm looking at a $225,000 to $250,000 house, for example, I may choose to do a net sheet at $230,000, for example. But at least I'm going to have that all in what they're going to net from that, minus their mortgage and what cash they're going to have on hand to buy their next home. And then I have them sign it. Because I don't ever want to happen that what has happened very often, which is they get to the closing table and they thought, I didn't know there were all these expenses. I thought we sold our house at $250,000, we were going to get $250,000. Well, no, they didn't. Maybe you talked about it. Maybe you even went through a net sheet or some costs, but you don't have any proof of that. If you have a signed net sheet that you get at the listing, now you've got proof, you've got paperwork. Finally, I want to reiterate what Pat Drucke said, and we've gotten a number of calls even in the last couple of weeks since Con Ed. Pat made it a point to always follow up your conversations in writing, in an email. And if it has anything to do with the purchase agreement or the listing contract, a change in the listing contract, for example, or something in the purchase agreement, to follow it up with documents like an addendum or an amendment to the listing contract and so on. Never, 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 never rely on verbal conversations. They are not legally binding. And very often, two agents, buyers and sellers, remember things differently. So always, whatever you do about a purchase agreement, always follow it up in writing. And if it is a change in the terms of purchase agreement or listing contract, follow it up by a document which amends that particular document you're talking about. Any questions today? I'll give you 8 seconds, 3 seconds, 2. Thanks for joining. See you next week.